Today is Saturday, May 23rd. We will resume with the Vimalakirti Sutra. But let me just clarify a point that was raised beginning of the sitting this morning. When we step into the Zendo, we're entering the realm of our own formal practice. And so we make those three bows. First bow is entering the Zendo and recognizing the sacredness of this space, or any Zendo, or any place of practice, really. I remember Aiken Roshi remarking how when he was watching many years ago, the Olympics on television, when the Chinese team, the swimming team, I don't remember if they were divers or what, entered the pool area, they all bowed. So this is a recognition of something profound in our life that spills over from the Zendo into all areas where we function, hopefully at our best. Then, once we've entered the formal space of practice, every step we take to our place is a step of practice. So our hands no longer hang down at our sides. In fact, Dogen makes this point on his principles for every Zendo. You no longer walk with hands at your sides. You put your hands, obviously, he's saying, in Kinhin position, and you walk as a step. Every step is a step of formal practice. You're practicing once you step into the Zendo. You're no longer walking to your place in order to practice. Once you've stepped into the space of Zendo, you are formally practicing. So hands go in Kinhin. You're paying attention with every breath. With each step, you walk to your place. You make your bow to your place, honoring that mat or that chair as the center of the universe, the place where your practice will proceed, just like Shakyamuni under the Bo tree. The place of practice. This is it. We honor it. This is where our work is done. And then we turn and bow to our fellow sitters, because unlike Shakyamuni, we have the benefit of Sangha to support us, and to which we also give our own support through our practice. So the same holds for Doksan. Once the bell is rung, your Doksan has begun. It doesn't begin when you get in the room. Every step you take down the hall, the way you close the doors, the way you bow, the way you walk in, take your seat, all expresses your practice of Doksan. So these little formal touches help to activate the deepest levels of our practice mind, and that's why they're there. So just keep those little tidbits in mind as you work on your own practice every time. So we'll resume now with the Vimalakirti Sutra, and we're taking a look at chapter number 10, in this wonderful, amazing, funny, astonishing, as you'll see, sutra. And we're looking at chapter 10, which is titled Fragrance Accumulated. At that time, Shariputra, one of the Buddha's, of course, great monks, great disciples, thought to himself, it's almost noon. What are all these bodhisattvas going to eat? We've all had foolish thoughts. I'm really deep into my practice. Hey, I wonder what they're serving for lunch. So the sutra is speaking very knowledgeably about the realities of practice. It's such an authentic piece of work. Then Vimalakirti, knowing what was in his mind, said the Buddha preached the 8 emancipations. We might say the Eightfold Path. You, sir, should undertake to practice them. Why be distracted by thoughts of eating when you are listening to the Dharma? If you want something to eat, wait a moment. I will see that you get the sort of food you have never had before. Now, This gets really far out. I mean, science fiction far out. Vimalakirti then entered Samadhi and, employing his transcendental powers, showed the great assembly a country, though some translations might say a world or a planet, called Many Fragrances, situated in a region high above beyond Buddha lands, as numerous as the sands of 42 Ganges. This sounds a lot like modern astronomy. It is a really profound vision of the many-worlded universe, with worlds scattered like grains of sand. In fact, not just of one Ganges river in number. Imagine how many grains of sand there are on the banks and on the bottom of the Ganges River, one of the longest, broadest rivers on this planet. 42 Ganges rivers. That's how far away this world called Many Fragrances is from our world, the earth, or sometimes known as Rose Apple Land in the Buddha Sutras. Now, the Buddha, named Fragrance Accumulated, was at that time present there, in this other world. Thousands, millions maybe, of worlds away. Maybe in this galaxy, because there are billions of stars, and more than billions of planets. Could be in another galaxy, we don't know. The Buddha, named Fragrance Accumulated, was at that time present there. The fragrance of his country was finer than the fragrance of all the human and heavenly realms of the Buddha lands of the 10 directions. In his land, there was not even the term voice hearer or pratyeka Buddha, but only great bodhisattvas, pure and clean, for whom the Buddha preached the Dharma. All the inhabitants of his world built their halls and towers out of fragrances, the fragrant aroma of their food wafted to immeasurable worlds in the 10 directions. At this time, the Buddha and the various bodhisattvas were just sitting down together to eat. Heavenly offspring, all named Fragrant Garland, all with their minds set on attaining Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, were serving the meal to the Buddha and the bodhisattvas. Among the great assembly gathered at Vimalakirti's house, there were none who could not see these things with their own eyes. See another planet, 42 Ganges worth of sands of worlds away, in which all the buildings, all the towers, every place was built of fragrances. And the bodhisattvas there were gathered around their Buddha, named Fragrance Accumulated. Then Vimalakirti addressed the bodhisattvas, saying, Sirs, who among you can bring us some of that Buddha's food? Out of deference to Manjushri's authority and supernatural powers, however, all of them remained silent. Addressing Manjushri, Vimalakirti said, Sir, a great assembly such as this is shameful, is it not? Manjushri replied, As the Buddha has told us, never despise those who have yet to learn. Really, Manjushri and Vimalakirti are playing a game here. They're both completely in the know, and Manjushri is taking a very humble role. Bodhisattva of great transcendental prajna wisdom, he plays the fall guy, taking a very humble role, allowing between he and Vimalakirti great skillful means to reveal the Dharma in all its profundity and specifics, to be shown to us, demonstrated. Thereupon Vimalakirti, get this, without rising from his seat, but in the presence of the whole gathering, conjured up a phantom bodhisattva, whose auspicious features, shining brightness, authority, and virtue were so superior that they outshone the entire group. Thinking of artificial intelligence and what might be developed in the future. Vimalakirti was doing this at the time of the Buddha, about 2,800 years ago. Then he announced to this bodhisattva that he created with perhaps mental powers. You must go to the region high above, beyond Buddha lands, numerous as the sands of 42 Ganges, where there is a world called Many Fragrances. The Buddha, named Fragrance Accumulated, is just now sitting down with his bodhisattvas to a meal. When you arrive in his presence, speak as I instruct you, saying, Vimalakirti bows his head before the feet of the world-honored one with immeasurable reverence and begs to inquire if, in your daily activities, your illnesses are few, your worries are few, does your strength suffice you? So, very interesting point. If you think Buddhas are beyond it all, Vimalakirti recommends to his phantom conjured bodhisattva when he speaks, with the bodhisattva fragrance accumulated, to ask him how he's doing. Obviously, being even a fully realized Buddha doesn't mean one has no problems. There might be no difficulties. If you think of the life of Shakyamuni Buddha, there are a number of instances of tremendous difficulty after he was the Buddha. Devadatta tried to kill him several times, his own cousin, who was a sociopath, perhaps a psychopath. One point rolled a great boulder down towards him. The boulder bounced, split, but a splinter of stone flew off it and pierced the Buddha's foot. At one point, the Buddha, full Buddha, could not get any food, and he lived for a time on the grain in a trough set out for horses. We all have karma. It's inexplicable. At one point, his community was so torn up with some kind of petty arguments that he just went off into the forest and practiced alone. He'd had enough. But his teaching was not that he was abandoning them. His teaching was, we're all in this together. And if you can't listen to what the practice is about, then I'll just practice alone till you're ready. So even Buddhists have their difficulties. Then, going on, Vimalakirti continues to the phantom bodhisattva that he conjured. He desires to obtain the leftovers from this meal of the world-honored one so he may carry out the Buddha's work by dispensing them in the Saha world, enabling those who delight in a lesser doctrine to be broadened by the great way, and also to cause the thus come one's fame to be heard on all sides. At that time, this conjured bodhisattva, in the presence of the gathering, ascended to the region high above. Everyone in the entire assembly could see him as he departed, and as he arrived in the world called Many Fragrances, and made his obeisance at the feet of the Buddha there. And they could hear him say, Vimalakirti bows his head before the feet of the world-honored one, with immeasurable reverence, and begs to inquire if in your daily activities your illnesses are few, your worries are few, does your strength suffice you? He desires to obtain the leftovers from this meal of the world-honored one so he may carry out the Buddha's work by dispensing them in the Saha world. Saha, a Sanskrit word meaning tolerable or bearable. That is our planet, where things are not built of fragrances. They're built of stenches and difficulties and hardships. This is a tolerable world, one where you can, as Vimalakirti you'll see in this chapter, talks about, one can advance in spiritual practice more rapidly than in easy kinds of worlds. This is not an easy world, it's a bearable one. So he can carry out the Buddha's work by dispensing these leftovers in the Saha world, ensuring that those who delight in a lesser doctrine will be broadened by the great way, that is Mahayana, great way, and also that the thus come one, Tathagata, the Buddha comes from nowhere, goes nowhere, is completely present. Uh, his fame may be heard on all sides, that is the fame of the Buddha fragrance accumulated. When the great men of the world many fragrances saw this conjured bodhisattva, they sighed at seeing what they had never seen before and said, "Where has this superior being come from? The Saha world, where is that? What is this thing called a lesser doctrine?" Very different world. When they had put these questions to their Buddha, the Buddha, fragrance accumulated, announced to them, "In the lower region, beyond Buddha lands as numerous as the sands of 42 Ganges, there is a world called Saha. The Buddha named Shakyamuni is at present manifesting himself in that difficult world of the five impurities in order to expound the teachings of the way to living beings who delight in a lesser doctrine, that is, still have self-centered goals in practice. He has a bodhisattva named Vimalakirti who dwells in the emancipation beyond comprehension and preaches the Dharma for the other bodhisattvas. He has purposely dispatched this phantom being to come and extol my name and praise this world, so that thereby he may bring increased benefits to those bodhisattvas. The bodhisattvas of that world, fragrance accumulated's world, said, "How can this man conjure up a phantom such as this? Does he possess such strength of virtue, such fearlessness, such transcendental powers?" The Buddha replied, "His powers are great indeed. He dispatches phantoms in all the 10 directions to carry out the Buddha's work and bring enrichment to living beings." Then the thus come one, fragrance accumulated, took a bowl of many fragrances, filled it with fragrant rice, and gave it to the phantom bodhisattva. At that time, the 9,000,000 bodhisattvas all spoke out in unison, saying, "We wish to visit that Saha world and offer alms to Shakyamuni Buddha, and we also wish to see Vimalakirti and the many other bodhisattvas." "You may go," said the Buddha, "but," get this, "but draw in your bodily fragrances so that you will not cause living beings to be deluded or beguiled by them. And you should put aside your real form so that persons in that country who are striving to become bodhisattvas will not feel intimidated or ashamed." The form of the bodhisattvas living in the world, fragrance accumulated, much more vast, their bodies are much more beautiful, their size is immense compared to us, their world is a blessed world, but there's one little rub. Though they're bodhisattvas, they can't develop further as rapidly as those who make efforts on this difficult world, as we'll see. And you must not look on that land or that world with disdain or contempt or rouse thoughts that obstruct progress. Why? Because all the lands in the 10 directions are as empty as the sky. It is just that since the Buddhists wish to convert those who delight in a lesser doctrine, they do not reveal the full purity of that world. Many koans go into, don't say it 100%, never give more than 80%. To say it all, to reveal it all, would not be skillful. Sometimes what we don't see is what causes us to make real efforts to mature. At that time, the phantom bodhisattva, having received the bowl of rice, joined the 9,000,000 bodhisattvas in all, relying upon the might and supernatural power of the Buddha and upon Vimalakirti's power, suddenly vanished from that world, and then, in the space of an instant, arrived at Vimalakirti's house. Vimalakirti immediately conjured up 9 million lion seats, beautifully adorned, like the ones that were already there, and the bodhisattvas all sat down in them. The bodhisattvas then presented the bowl, filled with fragrant rice, to Vimalakirti. Remember, in sitting in Teisho, to think of it as practice. It is a realm of practice. We don't try and cling to the words, just let them come in. And our posture remains Zazen posture, because listening to Teisho is a form of Zazen. And of course, if there's any conflict between doing your practice and listening, then let the listening take precedence and just listen completely. Completely. Be the sounds completely. No mulling over it, though. The bodhisattva then presented the bowl filled with fragrant rice to Vimalakirti. The fragrance of the rice perfumed the entire city of Vaisali and the whole 1,000,000,000-fold world. That really sounds like he's talking about a galaxy. The 1,000,000,000-fold world. And of course, there are billions, endless galaxies made of billions of stars and billions of planets. The Brahmins, lay believers, and others of Vaishali, smelling. By the way, how did they know that 2,800 years ago? 1,000,000,000-fold world. Now, of course, 1,000,000,000-fold world could also refer to this world. 1,000,000,000-fold minds, kinds of beings, tree beings, bug beings, animal beings, bird beings, human beings, 1,000,000,000-fold world. The Brahmins, lay believers, and others of Vaishali, smelling this fragrant aroma, were delighted in body and mind, sighing with admiration at something they had never known before. At that time, Moon Canopy, a leader among the rich men, accompanied by 84,000 persons, came to Vimalakirti's house. Seeing the vast number of bodhisattvas, remember 9 million have come from this other world, gathered in the room, and the lion seats, tall, broad, and beautifully adorned, they were all filled with delight. After paying obeisance to the bodhisattvas and the major disciples, they retired and stood to one side. Various earth deities, sky deities, and heavenly beings of the world of desire and the world of form, smelling the fragrant aroma, all likewise came to Vimalakirti's house. Then Vimalakirti said to Shariputra and the other great voice hearers, Sirs, come, eat this rice from the thus come one, delicious as sweet dew. It is redolent with the odor of great compassion. But you must not eat it in a narrow-minded manner, or you will never digest it. Some of the other voice hearers thought to themselves, there's only a little rice. How can I feed all the people in this great assembly? But the phantom bodhisattva said, do not try to use your voice hearers' petty virtue and petty wisdom in appraising the immeasurable blessings and wisdom of the thus come one. Though the 4 seas run dry, this rice will never come to an end. Every person here could eat helpings the size of Mount Sumero, and do so for a whole kalpa, but still it would never be exhausted. Why? Because this is the leftovers from a meal eaten by persons who have acquired inexhaustible merits through the precepts, meditation, wisdom, emancipation, and the insight that is prajna of emancipation. Therefore, it can never be exhausted. The rice in the bowl was then used to feed to satisfaction all the members of the assembly. Yet it remained as it was, without any sign of depletion. The bodhisattvas, voice hearers, and heavenly and human beings who ate the rice had a sense of bodily ease and delight of mind, like the bodhisattvas in the country of all delights and adornments. And a wonderful fragrance emanated from the pores of all of them, like the fragrance of the trees in the land called Many Fragrances. At that time, Vimalakirti asked the bodhisattvas from the country Many Fragrances, how does the thus come one, fragrance accumulated, preach the Dharma? Get this. The bodhisattvas replied, the 9 million bodhisattvas were all sitting in Vimalakirti's little room, and their lion chairs are all fitting in that little room. The thus come one in our land does not employ words in his exposition. He just uses various fragrances to induce heavenly and human beings to undertake the observance of the precepts. Each bodhisattva sits under a fragrant tree, and when he smells the marvelous fragrance, he immediately attains the samadhi, known as the storehouse of all virtues. Persons who are able to attain this samadhi all become endowed with the blessings of a bodhisattva. Part of this connects with why incense is lit in Buddhist practice places. Wonderful fragrances help us to drop our normal minds. But that's how they do it in that world. They don't have to do anything but sit under a fragrant tree, and it all falls away. The bodhisattvas then asked Vimalakirti, now, how does the world-honored one Shakyamuni preach the Dharma? Get this. Vimalakirti replied, the living beings of this land are stubborn and strong-willed and hard to convert. Therefore, the Buddha uses strong language when preaching to them in order to tame and control them. He says, this is hell. This is the realm of beasts. This is the realm of hungry spirits. These are the difficult conditions. This is the place where stupid people are born. These are misdeeds of the body. These are the retribution for misdeeds of the body. These are misdeeds of the mouth. These are the retribution for misdeeds of the mouth. These are misdeeds of the mind. These are the retribution for misdeeds of the mind. This is the killing of living beings. This is the retribution for killing living beings. This is taking what has not been given to you. This is the retribution for taking what has not been given to you. This is sexual misconduct. This is the retribution for sexual misconduct. This is lying. This is the retribution for lying. This is being double-tongued. This is the retribution for being double-tongued. This is harsh speech. This is the retribution for harsh speech. This is specious talk. This is the retribution for specious talk. This is greed. This is the retribution for greed. This is wrath. This is the retribution for wrath. These are erroneous views. This is the retribution for erroneous views. This is stinginess. This is the retribution for stinginess. This is breaking the precepts. This is the retribution for breaking the precepts. This is anger. This is the retribution for anger. This is sloth. This is the retribution for sloth. This is distractedness. This is the retribution for distractedness. This is stupidity. This is the retribution for stupidity. This is accepting the precepts. This is keeping the precepts. This is violating the precepts. This is what ought to be done. This is what ought not to be done. This is creating obstacles. This is not creating obstacles. This is incurring blame. This is avoiding blame. This is purity. This is defilement. This is to have outflows. This is to be free from outflows. This is the wrong way. This is the correct way. This is the conditioned. This is the unconditioned. This is the mundane world. This is nirvana. These people who are difficult to convert have minds like monkeys. Therefore, one must resort to various methods in order to control and regulate their minds. Only then can they be tamed and made obedient. It's like dealing with an elephant or horse that is wild and unruly. We can say like dealing with an ox, if you look at the ox herding pictures. One must apply sharp blows till it feels them in its bones, and then it can be tamed. And it is the same with these stubborn and strong-willed beings who are difficult to convert. Therefore, one uses all sorts of bitter and piercing words. Then they can be made to observe the precepts. When those bodhisattvas had finished listening to this explanation, they all exclaimed, "We have never heard of such a thing before." A world-honored one like Shakyamuni, who conceals his immeasurable powers of freedom and preaches the Dharma in a manner that will please the mean in spirit in order to save and liberate all beings? These bodhisattvas, how zealous of them, in their immeasurably great compassion, to condescend to be born in this Buddha land, that is, this planet Earth. Vimalakirti said, "The bodhisattvas of this land are indeed steadfast in their great compassion for all living beings. It is just as you have said, and the enrichment and benefit they bring to living beings in one lifetime here is greater than that bestowed in other worlds over the space of 100,000 kalpas. Why? Because in this Saha world, there are 10 good practices that do not exist in any of those pure lands. What are these 10? And what he does is list the 6 paramitas and then goes on to things beyond that. The 6 are almsgiving, or dana, which does away with poverty and destitution. Pure precepts, shila, morality, which does away with violation of the prohibitions. Forbearance, or kshanti, which does away with anger. Assiduousness, or virya, which Jack Kerouac termed eagerness, which does away with sloth. Meditation, or jhana, which does away with distractedness of mind. Wisdom, or prajna, which does away with stupidity. The explanation of how to remove oneself from difficulties, which saves those who face the 8 difficulties. The doctrine of the Mahayana, which saves those who delight in the lesser vehicle. The cultivation of good roots, do good, avoid evil, save the many beings, which rescues those who are lacking in virtue, and the 4 ways of winning people, which are constantly employed to guide living beings to success. These are the 10. The bodhisattvas said, what methods must these bodhisattvas carry out in their practices in this Saha world, so that they may be born free of boils and sores in a pure land? Vimalakirti replied, these bodhisattvas must carry out 8 methods in their practice in this world in order to be born free of boils and sores in a pure land. What are these 8? They must enrich and benefit living beings, but look for no recompense. They must take upon themselves the suffering of all living beings, and what merit they thereby acquire shall be of a gift to those beings. In part, that's what we do with our healing chanting service on Wednesday nights. Accept the sufferings of all beings. And we give the depths of our practice in the effort to benefit all suffering beings. An important aspect of our practice, not an add-on to Zen practice, but really a way of expressing and embodying the core of it, not an add-on. In mind, they must be like other living beings, humbling themselves, descending to their level, erecting no barriers, no separation. They shall regard other bodhisattvas as though they were looking at the Buddha himself. When they hear a sutra they have not heard before, they shall not doubt it, and they shall not dispute with or oppose the voice hearers, those who don't accept that sutra, in other words. They shall not envy the alms received by others, nor boast of their own gains. In carrying out these methods, they must regulate and control their minds, constantly reflecting on their own faults and not censuring the shortcomings of others. At all times, they shall with a single mind strive to acquire merits. These are the 8 methods. When Vimalakirti and Manjushri expounded these teachings to the great assembly, 100,000 heavenly and human beings all set their minds on attaining Anuttara, Samyak, Sambodhi, and 10,000 bodhisattvas were able to accept the truth of birthlessness. To accept the truth of birthlessness means to realize the non-dual mind from the very beginning. Our own mind has always been whole, complete, empty of self-location, empty of self-centeredness, empty of me and mine from the very beginning. It's not something we get. We realize the truth of what's always been. That's why, though we make progress, we can't speak of progress. Though we seem to make gains, we can't really speak of gains. It's very easy to get caught up in the minutiae of practice. But the fundamental point, as Vimalakirti points out, is to accept the truth of birthlessness. How can that be? That no one is born. If no one's born, then no one dies. Yet we see birth and death around us all the time. Anyone with eyes open can't escape this. What is it to accept the truth of birthlessness? Please make that the very center of your practice.